Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 14 waiver wire ads for the 2022 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, then please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so. Cool graphics going to fly on the screen right now at NotoriousFNTSY. Our sponsor of today's video is DraftKings Sportsbook. We're going to talk about them a little bit later. Link in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 14. Crazy week number 14. It's almost the playoff time, and there's a shit ton of teams on bye this week. So let's get into the week number 14 waiver wire ads. We begin with the running back waiver wire ads headlined by James Cook of the Buffalo Bills going up against the New York Jumbo Jets at home in Buffalo, currently owned in 24% of leagues on Yahoo. So if you play on NFL, CBS, ESPN, any of those other fantasy football platforms, then the ownership percentage will be slightly different, though I will note in some cases there might be a drastic difference in ownership percentage. Week 13 at the New England Patriots. In that game, James Cook was the RB14 in half PPR. Now, it's also important to note that this video is being recorded prior to Monday Night Football tonight, so if one of those running backs ends up being a top 14 guy, then James Cook will fall down a spot or maybe two spots, depending on what happens. That is just important to note because I don't want people coming after me saying I'm faking the stats or whatever. It's just about being prior to Monday Night Football. 14 rushes for 64 yards, 6 receptions on 6 targets for 41 yards. Now, this was the first time that the Buffalo Bills in this man's career was actually given a chance to cook. James Cook, I thought that was kind of funny. So he's actually been given the opportunity to get a decent amount of touches, and thus this was his first game with over 10 half PPR points. James Cook's snap count took a large leap in week number 13. Week 12, he played in just 18% of the snaps. Week 13, all the way up to 43%. And in turn, this knocked Devin Singletary down from playing in 78% of the snaps in week 12 to just 44% in week number 13. Now, I'm not saying that it is going to be a fucking stone cold guarantee that James Cook is going to be the guy going up against this Jets team this week, but at the end of the day, if you can pick up the potential starting running back on one of the best offenses in the National Football League, if not the best offense in the NFL, then you probably should fucking do it. At number 2, we have the other running back in this game, just on the other team, Zonovan Bam Knight of the New York Jumbo Jets, going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, owned in 47% of leagues on Yahoo. In week 13, up against the Minnesota Vikings, cold like Minnesota. He was the running back number 13 in half PPR, having 15 rushes for 90 yards, 5 receptions on 5 targets for 28 yards. The snap counts for the running backs of the Jets last week, Zonovan/Bam Knight. He's Bam Knight on some websites and Zonovan Knight on other websites. Figured I'd make that known so you can find the guy. He played in 55% of snaps last week. Ty Johnson, 33%. And the team trades for James Robinson for him to play 11% of snaps and be outsnapped by Ty Johnson, who isn't very good at all. Now, if Michael Carter does end up returning this week, then it definitely does change up how I view this situation. But ultimately, this is a team that switched from their quote-unquote franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson to go with Mike White because that is their best solution towards winning. So would it surprise me at all if even when Michael Carter returns, makes his comeback, that Zonovan Knight is the guy, the starting running back, the guy getting a majority of the snaps? No. Wouldn't at all. So I'm a big fan of Zonovan Knight going forward. And again, not a lock that he's taken the job, but I do think that it is possible. At number 3, we move to Cam Akers of the LA Rams going up against the, turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders, currently owned in 46% of leagues. Now, week 13 up against the Seattle Seahawks, Cam Akers came alive. He went into full Super Saiyan mode. Now, people who drafted Cam Akers might have already cut him. That's why this motherfucker was like a top 5 round pick, and it's only owned in 46% of leagues because people cut him. They were tired of his bullshit. He requested a trade, but miraculously in week 13, something came upon him. He must have eaten some powerful cereal in the morning or some shit. He had Frosted Flakes in the morning. RB6.5 PPR, 16 carries, 60 yards, and not one, but 2 tugs, 1 reception on 1 target. Week 13 running back snap counts. It completely flipped from week 13 to week 14 from week 12 to week 13 because week 13 Cam Akers played 72% of the snaps to Kyren Williams 28%, and I genuinely believe that is because with Wofford under center, Akers will be taking the bulk of the carries. He's going to be taking the bulk of the snaps. Now I understand, Nick, the Rams offense is a fucking disaster. I know, but their offensive line actually is starting to look good, which wasn't the case with Stafford and Kupp and Robinson. When their whole team was healthy, that was not the case. And now they go up against one of the worst run defenses in the NFL in the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm not sitting here banging the drum aggressively, telling you that you got to start Cam Akers this week, but with how many fucking bye week teams there are this week, there's a lot worse options than Cam Akers. And number 4, this is where things start to go really downhill, right? The number 1 running back, James Cook, you can add him, you can play him. Same with Zonovan Knight, same with Cam Akers. Here, we're assuming that there's an injury. DJ Dallas of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Carolina Panthers, 3% owned. And we're also assuming that he is going to become the guy in this backfield. I think he will. But right now, we can see that Pete Carroll said that Kenneth Walker jammed his ankle and that the team will see what that means. Now, Pete Carroll is a notorious fucking liar. Lies all the time when it comes to injuries. He just does. He told us that Chris Carson was going to be just fine. He's going to be able to play this year. And then bada bing, bada boom, Chris Carson's neck is so fucked up that he retires. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's playing these charades with not with DJ Dallas, with Kenneth Walker III. And then Kenneth Walker's like not going to be able to play for the next 4 weeks, right? Now, again, I'm not saying that is a guarantee. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just talking about the things that I've seen in the past. And if Kenneth Walker misses, then I think DJ Dallas will be the guy. 10 rushes for 37 yards and a target. Again, not necessarily the best handcuff on earth, but if he's going to be given the opportunity to play, then you're going to have to pick him up. Next up, we move to the final running back here. This is just one of those handcuffs that you pick up just in case an insurance policy. We're knocking on the fucking door of the playoffs. So this is the time where you got to load up on those handcuffs, even if you don't have CMC, just to have the handcuff in case something happens to McCaffrey. This week going up against the Bucs, but again, he's not really start worthy unless McCaffrey was to go down. 15% owned on Yahoo. RB number 40 last week up against the Dolphins. 8 rushes for 51 yards. Again, he looks like a talented player. He looks like he could be very serviceable if something happened to Christian McCaffrey. Now, I'm going to knock on my table, knock on wood. I don't root for injuries, but we are at the point in the season where you have to be very aware of the handcuffs of your running backs, and you need to pick them up. Next up, we move to the wide receiver position, beginning with Donovan Peoples-Jones, DPJ of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. I've been talking about this guy for what feels like half the fucking season, but he's still only owned in 55% of leagues on Yahoo. Week 13, up against the Houston Texans in Houston, wide receiver 51.5 PPR, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 44 yards. Now, normally, when a player only gets 44 yards and 3 targets, and I really like them, I say that guy shit the bed. He screwed the pooch. He had a bad game. But ultimately, Deshaun Watson was downright horrendous. He was awful. He was seeing ghosts like he was Sam Darnold. He had no idea what he was doing. He was underthrowing the ball constantly. It was embarrassing to watch. Now, the Browns obviously fucking pile driver the Houston Texans because the Texans' offense is so bad. They're just throwing pick sixes to the defense, and the defense scored like 30 fantasy points. But at the end of the day, I don't think Watson's going to be this rusty for this long. Maybe he needs a bit of a massage to get him going. I'm not too sure, but Donovan Peoples-Jones could potentially be a league winner if Watson comes back to reality, and that reality being like 2 years ago when he was one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. But before we move on into the rest of the wide receivers, then the quarterbacks, then the tight ends, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends, our sponsor over at DraftKings. Now, if you're a brand new user to DraftKings Sportsbook, and click on the link down below in the video description down below, and you deposit $5+ into your sportsbook account, all you have to do is place a wager of at least $5 on any sport pregame money line until the end of December. And if your bet hits, you will receive $150 in free bets. if you live in Maryland, where they just opened their sportsbook, you will actually get $200 in free bets, so even more incentive to join if you are in Maryland. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and throw up DraftKings on the screen, and in my opinion, since college football's over, basically there's just the bowl games, and I normally bet college football for these kind of things because they're the biggest favorites. Same thing can be said about college basketball. So you're just going to pick the highest, most likely team to win, the biggest odds, the deepest odds to win. It's going to be minus 1,000 or bigger than that. Bet $5 on them, and if they win, you'll receive $150 in free bets on DraftKings Sportsbook. Please make sure that you take advantage of this right now because, again, it's not going to last forever, and then you can use those free bets on whatever sport that you want. So now we move to the number 2 wide receiver of today's video, and that is Michael Gallup of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Houston Texans at home in Dallas, 53% owned, which is shocking to me because I feel like Gallup hasn't done too much this season to where he'd be owned in over 50% of leagues. Now, I'm not saying he was bad by any means, but if you're holding a guy and he doesn't start producing well early on, a lot of time people just fucking cut bait on the guy. Week 13 up against the Colts, wide receiver 15 in half PPR, 4 receptions on 7 targets for 23 yards and 2 touchdowns. Back-to-back Michael Jordan, 96, 97, games with over 7 targets. In his last 5 games, he has gotten 6 or more targets in every single game except for 1. I also read that it's possible that Odell might not even be able to play this year. Now, obviously, Odell isn't just signed with the Cowboys yet, but he was one of the favorites, and there's also a chance that Odell just doesn't sign with the Cowboys, and Michael Gallup remains as the number 2 wide receiver on the team all year long. At number 3, we have Jameson Williams of the Detroit Lions going up against the Minnesota Vikings at home in Detroit, 46% owned. Week 13 up against the Jaguars, wide receiver 105, and once you reach wide receiver 105, anyone there and beyond, to infinity and beyond, didn't do shit because they didn't score a point. Jameson Williams didn't score a point, 1 target, nothing, no receptions. The snap counts for the receivers last week. Amon-Ra St. Brown played 87% snaps. DJ Chark, baby Chark, 84%. Josh Reynolds, 79%. Khalif Raymond, 17%. And Jameson Williams, 11%. And that should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody because I talked about prior to last week that, hey, if you add Jameson Williams, you're not adding him to play him. They're going to slowly ease him in. Just metaphorically, just the tip. Just a little bit of Jameson Williams, and then they keep ramping him up and up and up and up. Now, am I saying this week against the Vikings he's going to be in 50+% of snaps? I don't think so. But as the playoffs approach, this guy could be ramped up enough to where he's start-worthy in solid matchups. The Lions have some pretty solid matchups going forward. Again, I'm not starting him this week. If you need someone to add that you need to start this week, then don't go with Jameson Williams. But if you want a nice stash, that could be a nice league winner, a golden egg on your roster, then add Jameson Williams. At number 4, we have a guy that you also can't play this week, and that's because he's on bye. That is Jahan Dotson of the Washington Commanders this week, going up against the bye week. The Commanders coming off of a fat tie up against the Giants in MetLife. Wide receiver 18 on the week, 5 receptions on 9 targets for 54 yards and a touchdown. We did see early on in the season that Jahan Dotson was having a fantastic rookie year. He ended up getting hurt. He missed some time, but now he's back, and it seems like he's back in a very solid role for this offense. Now, I was someone who was a little bit worried when Taylor Heineke came under center that could affect Jahan Dotson because I knew it would be great for Terry McLaurin because, again, I talked about this a lot. Taylor Heineke does the fuck it. McLaurin's out there somewhere and just throws the ball into quadruple coverage. Sometimes it's a catch. Sometimes it's a pick six. It is what it is. But I thought, hey, that crazy type of play style might not benefit Jahan Dotson, and I'm pretty sure at this point I feel like that was wrong. So again, while he's not the number 1 guy on the team, right now it's pretty safe to say he is the number 2 weapon on the Commanders. At number 5, this is a straight up flyer. This is a deep shot from half court. Corey Davis of the Jets going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, 13% owned. Again, this is very much a flyer pickup. Week 13 at the Minnesota Vikings, wide receiver 26.5 PPR, tied with my guy, Titty Boy, Higgins, 5 receptions on 10 targets for 85 yards. Mike White, who we're going to be talking about in the quarterback section, spoiler, threw the rock 57 times on Sunday. 57 times. Do I expect him to throw 57 times against the Bills? No. But if he's throwing the ball 40, 45 times a game, then Corey Davis now has a decent amount of value. Now, we all know that Zach Wilson likes him a little bit older, so that's why he was targeting Corey Davis a little bit early on in the season. But now it's Mike White season, Magic Mike White season. And I think Corey Davis could be interesting. Again, this matchup reeks. And not in the way where normally it's like, oh, this matchup sucks. This is such a fun one. No, this matchup sucks because the Bills' defense is really good. But again, he's a flyer. He's a guy you're looking for. Deep upside, maybe Corey Davis is that answer. This week, now I move to the quarterback position, beginning with Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions, going up against the Minnesota Vikings at home in Detroit, 50% owned. In week number 13, up against the Jaguars, quarterback number 4 for Jared Goff, 31 completions on 41 attempts for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Minnesota Vikings have one of the worst pass defenses in the National Football League. So say what you want about Jared Goff, and I agree with a lot of what people say. They'll say, Nick, you know what? Goff at points can be good, but he's very inconsistent. And I completely agree with that notion. Sure, he is inconsistent, but again, the Vikings defense is bad. Bad news bears against the pass. So even with the risk that comes with Jared Goff, the fact that you're playing Jared Goff, I know it's a little bit gross, right? You got to wash your hand after you touch your mouse and throw him into your fucking lineup. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to play him because I love the matchup. Number 2, we got Tyler Huntley, quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, going up against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, owned in 1% of leagues. This is under the assumption that Lamar Jackson doesn't play, and based upon what head coach Harbaugh said, where he is going to miss days to weeks, doesn't sound good. Does not sound like Lamar Jackson should be playing this week. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense matchup is not amazing. This is not a wet dream matchup like how Goff's playing against Minnesota. And I know Tyler Huntley doesn't have the greatest weapons on his team, right? He's like trying to go into war with a bunch of fucking Nerf guns, right? And then one of those, like, instead of grenades, he's got those water balloons that look like grenades, right? But at the end of the day, Huntley has some serious rushing upside. Week 14 against the Broncos, coming in relief of Lamar. It's not like he played the whole game. He was quarterback 15. 27 completions on 32 attempts for 187 yards and an interception. 10 rushes for 41 yards and a touchdown. Now, this guy is not Lamar Jackson. He's not. But is he skilled enough to get it done for fantasy? Maybe this week and next week while Lamar's gone? Definitely. Especially because I do think the rushing upside is important, and because if you just look back to last year, hop in the fucking time machine, he came in for Lamar, played pretty well. So he's got a nice track record. I think he's going to be pretty decent this week. The final quarterback to stream this week would be Mike White, Magic Mike White himself of the New York Jumbo Jets, going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, 18% owned. Quarterback number 9 last week up against the Vikings, 31 completions on 57 attempts for 369 yards. Very nice. I like. 2 interceptions, but he did have 3 rushes for 7 yards and a touchdown. 2 solid games in a row. Now, I know when you're playing Mike White, there's the risk that this guy was drafted where he was for a reason. This guy was on the bench for the reason. They played Joe Flacco over him at the beginning of the season for a reason. This, that, and the other thing, right? People are going to try to shit on Mike White. Now, I understand. Nick, this is a tough matchup. I fully understand. But again, this motherfucker is going to have to throw the ball a bunch. I don't expect 57 attempts, but could he have 45 against the Bills? A good team? I think so. I think so. And his weapons are looking pretty good. Garrett Wilson fucking feasting with Mike White. So again, I'm not advocating for Mike White to be a top 12 ranked quarterback, but I am advocating for him to be a start-worthy guy, and I think he will do just decent up against his rival in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. Final position here, the tight ends. We got Greg Dulcich at number 1 of the Broncos going up against the Chiefs at home in Denver. This game was flexed off of Sunday Night Football for my Dolphins going up against the Chargers. Not going to talk about the Dolphins too much in this video. I was immensely disappointed, though, with their performance on Sunday, but we're going to get right. Get right game up against the social media quarterback, Justin Herbert the pervert. With that said, though, Greg Dulcich, week 14 up against the Ravens in Baltimore. Tight end number 2 in half PPR, tied with Easy E. Evan Ingram. 6 receptions on 8 targets for 85 yards. Sutton's availability for this game is up in the air. Now, obviously, anytime you start Greg Dulcich, you are at the mercy of one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen grace the gridiron. Now, in terms of his career, he's probably a Hall of Famer. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited. Sure. But this year, this guy looks fucking useless. He is useless. And it is hard to watch on Sunday. And I've made jokes about this. I talked about this last week. This man has more toilets, more shitters in his house than he has touchdowns in the NFL this season. Great. Right? Because while that might not sound too crazy right now, it's week 14. We all know Russell Wilson sucks, right? It's like beating a dead horse. But entering into the season, a lot of people, including myself, thought Russell Wilson would be really good. Not the case. Again, Greg Dulcich is decent. He's going to get targets. He was pretty good to start off when he came back from his injury. Then he was pretty bad. Recently, he's kind of caught fire a little bit. Again, the tight ends to stream are hard this year, but I think Greg Dulcich is decent. Noah Fant of the Seahawks going up against the Carolina Panthers at number 2, 13% owned, up against the Rams in LA. Tight end number 1 in half PPR, also almost scored a second touchdown, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 42 yards and a touchdown. Again, he almost scored 2 touchdowns. Solid game. We all know Geno Smith loves the tight end. The problem with Noah Fant is that DK Metcalf's around him, Tyler Lockett's around him. They also have Will Dissly. So it's kind of crowded, pretty crowded, especially with Will Dissly. They like to utilize both tight ends. So again, I like Dulcich a lot more than I like Fant. But again, at this point in the season, if you're looking, and there's a lot of people on bye, if you're looking for that fucking pizzazz, that spark in your roster, I think Noah Fant could bring that. Final tight end to talk about, final player of today's video, Easy E. Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going up against the Les Titans in Tennessee, 43% owned. Evan Ingram had a fantastic chef's kiss magnifique game in week 14 up against the Detroit Lions. Tight end 2.5 PPR, tied with Greg Dulcich. 5 receptions on 7 targets for 30 yards and a tug. Again, not the best matchup. Evan Ingram is incredibly inconsistent. He's hot, he's cold, he's yes, then he's no, he's in, then he's out, he's up, and he's fucking down. But at the end of the day, we're throwing a prayer out there. Trying to shoot that shot from 3, half fucking court, Stephen Curry. Worse options than Ingram this week. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Make sure you check out our sponsor of today's video, DraftKings, link down below in the video description. And since fantasy football is getting close to ending, very, very sad, and some people might get eliminated from the playoffs soon, if you want to keep playing stuff revolving around fantasy football, we have a great package for you. If you're new to DFS, or even if you're someone who's played DFS for a while, we have an NFL 3-day pass on Stochastic. Click on the link in the video description down below. It's for new users only. You get full access to everything NFL. You get our projections. These projections helped me, and all of these things helped me win I literally won $5,000 playing DFS on Sunday. So the shit works. I'm not just some snake oil salesman here. It works. I've won money playing DFS. It comes with our projections, our ownership, our 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stack tools. It's all in the description. Again, it's just 3 free days, so I wouldn't necessarily suggest using it right now. Probably just wait until Friday, then you get to use it on Sunday. That's what I would do. But, whatever floats your boat, link in the video description. Again, it's a good way to test drive these tools. And if you're new to DFS, this is going to help you significantly become better at DFS. I just started playing DFS last year. I'm new to it, and it helped me out a ton using these tools. So again, I'm not trying to just shill this shit because, I work there. No, it's because I genuinely think it's good. And it actually helps me out a ton. I think would help you as well. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy!